All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Talking Wellness. I'm so excited. My name is Kayla. I'm here with you back again, and I've got my crew.
It's your boy Michael. How we doing?
And it's me, Christian. What's up?
And we have an awesome new guest that you all have not met, but I'm super excited to introduce her. Her name is April Heath, and she is originally from Indiana, and she is actually an expert and has been doing massage therapy for over 15 years. And a little plug-in, she's also a blogger, which she does really out of joy and on her own time because it's just something that you like to do, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, so before we get started, this is going to be an episode that's really focused on massage therapy and how this is really important. It can be an important aspect to people's wellness and what are the benefits, the misconceptions, the challenges, and the successes within your practice of massage therapy and some of the insights and wisdom that you could drop on us and for all of our viewers. So before we get started, kind of diving in, I wanted to ask you a little bit on your background, like how did you get into massage therapy and just, yeah.
I got into massage kind of by accident. In 2006, the death of my father really put me into a mental health crisis. And I left New York, where I was an administrative assistant on trading floors on Wall Street, very high stress, high stakes. And I came down to Florida to be with my family. After I was released from the hospital, they're like, you need a spa day. I'm like, I'm game. So I was getting a massage, and while I was on the table, I could just feel the transformation, the tension going, the stress going, the tightness loosening up. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. This is such an amazing thing to be able to do for somebody. Uninterrupted, no distractions, no multitasking. And so I asked the therapist, Maya, I'll never forget her, what does it take to become a massage therapist? So she told me. I investigated 3 schools. I chose one. I enrolled, and that was it. And I got my license in 2009.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So let's start with some of the misconceptions. I want to talk a little bit about what are the misconceptions with massage therapy. I'm going to pass it over to Christian because he's been dying to ask this question.
Yeah. So obviously they said a massage therapist is coming over, and I immediately start going through all my memories of
Chris is like, you guys got us a massage?
I got a free massage. No, of course not. But obviously I have. As you guys saw last week, if you didn't see last week's episode about filmmaking and creativity, you should check it out. Sorry for the cliffhanger. But what's it called? I have a lot of ideas of what it is, but I've never actually been to a massage therapist before. So a lot of my knowledge about it is in what I see normally in like film or videos and stuff. And there's obviously a lot of misconceptions. Like one of the most famous ones that I can think of is in the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin, where like he has this complete like hairy chest and they're like ripping hair out of it.
Have you seen that movie?
Have you ever seen that film? And they're like, they're waxing stuff like that. Like he went to one of those playlists and like, that obviously that's not massage, but that's kind of the idea of like spas and massages that I have in my mind, you know, or like these movies where you see like these grown people like stepping on everybody's back, going back and forth, and the guy's like and all you hear you know what I'm saying? So those are the idea of it that I have.
You never gotten a massage yourself? Like
never. Another one.
I don't know what to tell you, but some of those are not misconceptions.
Okay. Well,
that sounds like massage therapy to me.
And we'll be right back.
Well,
it's like I must have been doing my job wrong.
A massage therapist who's not licensed to do wax is not going to wax. And any wax technician who will wax that thick hair should not be practicing. That's just sadistic.
Ouch.
What would be their approach for thick hair? Laser and stuff or something?
Just trim the hair.
Cut it
okay.
To a 1/4 inch long, so it's, you know.
There you
You're
go.
not torturing your...
Pull as hard and as fast as you possibly can. That's just torture. Yes, there is a type of massage called ashiatsu. It's Japanese, where they do, in fact, walk on your back barefoot. It can be very effective, provided the therapist is properly trained in it. And that's the truth with any type of massage. The therapist should be trained in what she's doing. Another misperception, oh, I don't know if I want hot stones because I might get burned. Well, that's actually a risk. And I'll tell you a true story. One of the little spas that I worked at hired a nurse to do massage. And this is perfectly within the scope of practice for a nurse. They can do massage. And she was booked for a hot stone. If she had been trained properly in hot stone massage, she would have known you don't use a turkey baster to heat up the stones. You use a proper stone warmer. You heat up the stones to the legal limit temperature, which is I think 120 or 130 degrees. Mm-hmm. She would have scooped it out with something, touched it to make sure the stones aren't too hot, and then massaged with them. What she did, she put the stones directly on the client and let them sit there. And he wound up with third-degree burns.
That's one thing I've never wanted to do.
That's what I'm talking about. Like
I've never wanted to do that. The stone thing.
It's amazing. I've done it. Oh my gosh.
I was gonna ask you. I was actually gonna ask that. What do you think is the most efficient, most successful, most worth the money, bang for your buck form of like massage therapy or
my signature
anything?
Services. Okay, best bang for your buck. Best type of massage. It really depends on what kind of pressure you can handle.
True.
If you don't know what kind of pressure you can handle, just start with a Swedish. It's a light to moderate pressure by definition.
It's like light. You get in there,
going crazy.
You can get deep tissue.
Yeah.
I like deep tissue.
I think I've got a deep tissue before.
That is like, they're getting in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was laughing. I think when it was happening to me, it was like kind of weird. I think I'm just weird when people touch me that I don't know. So I was like laughing. I was doing it with like as a couple thing.
Yeah.
So I was like laughing the whole time. But it was definitely not like laughable. It would definitely hurt and it was painful. But I was just like,
oh, you were laughing because you were embarrassed that you couldn't handle the pressure.
maybe. Subconsciously it could have been like, this really hurts and I don't want to cry, so I'm gonna laugh. Maybe. It was a woman and I didn't want to cry in front of her, so
There you go.
hey, maybe it was that. It was definitely therapeutic for me.
Yeah,
in different
I think
ways.
the single most important thing for any massage relationship with a client, whether that person, the client, has had massages around the world, or if they've never had a massage, if it's your first time with any therapist, just consider it as if it's your first time.
Yeah.
Lay the ground rules. Another true story. I was doing a couples massage, and the clients were booked for Swedish, which is, again, light to moderate pressure, gentle strokes, great for relaxation. And I'm watching the other therapist, and I'm like, what is he doing? So after the service, I was like, what were you doing? They booked a Swedish. And he's like, oh, well, she needed connective tissue. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
you have to give them what they book. And if you change the service without their permission, that's not right. And he's like, but that's what she needed. And I'm like, maybe, but you have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Ugh,
where
that
the
seems so
boundaries-
invasive.
The boundaries got to work both ways.
Yeah.
I've had clients come up and say, well, just do whatever you feel is necessary. That's blanket
That would be me.
permission.
Right.
But then there's other times where they don't really even know what kind of service they want.
Right.
I was
Or
like,
what
well,
they would need.
or what
That's
they
been
need.
that's been me before. Is I come in, I'm like, I'm not really sure what I'm like looking for. This was when I first started getting massage. And, just being able to talk to a therapist and like talk through like some of the, I guess, like challenges that I'm having, like where my stress levels are, like that I work out, like different things like that gives a therapist like an idea. But I'm the type of person that's like, if I feel like I'm in front of like a good therapist that we're connecting and they're understanding that, then I'll say, I trust you, and do what
It has
do
to
what
be
you need.
earned.
Yeah.
It really does have to be earned. I've had issues, or not issues, circumstance. Client on the table, again, booked for Swedish, and I start massaging, and I'm like, I think you need deep tissue. And she's like, well, I don't know if I can handle the pressure. And I said, I will give you a sample of deep tissue for like 5-10 minutes.
How do you know what someone needs? Like if they know deep tissue, if they need deep tissue, or they need Swedish, or like.
We have a little conversation.
Okay. Do you like
where
feel it in their body? Do you like feel the level of tension and stress, and you're like, I'm gonna have to go a little more.
I've
I'm about to get a jackhammer here,
Yeah.
man. You're
I'll be right
tense.
back. Be right back. Comes back in with a guy named Lars or something.
This is Dimitri. Give him 20
All right,
minutes.
I'm gonna leave you here for 10 minutes. I'll be right back for the easy part.
Oh my gosh.
I've never swapped out massage therapists in the middle of a service. That just seems insane, but that's hilarious.
They bring like WWE
You do
wrestlers.
like a peekaboo.
Yeah.
Like a peekaboo, you just turn the lights off and then turn them back on. They don't realize the different person. Your hands feel much rougher now.
Please welcome the Undertaker to give you your back massage now.
Yeah, I've seen it. That's why I said I've seen it in a movie where they like kind of switch and the guy's like, your hands feel much rougher now.
Yeah, what is that? Well, that brings another misconception that I wanted to talk about that I have also seen in movies. A lot of the times, people, and I hate to say it this way because it's a little graphic, but it's leading to a point that I think needs to be addressed. A lot of people that I've seen again in film and in
Happy
videos,
endings.
happy endings, for example, or
I
like
know people
using.
that do that now.
But that's what I'm saying. They go to a massage therapist expecting there to be some sort of sexual favor or something like that. So, but obviously that's super wrong to just assume that that's just going to happen, right? So, what do you feel about that problem? That I mean, I don't know if it's common or not. Yeah. I don't know if it's common, like where people get asked like regularly. That's why I'm asking your perspective. Like, what is your opinion on that, and what is the go-to for dealing with something like that?
I've definitely been asked, do I do happy endings? And I'm like, absolutely not. And I mean, my answer is probably pretty sad, but in my mind, there are places where they can get those.
That's what I'm saying. Like, as bad as that sounds, you should know the place in the setting to like do that. And I feel like,
but again, it's just the assumption.
for sure,
It's the assumption
It's a weird thing.
that weirds me out.
Yeah,
it weirds me out too.
Right.
When
I can't
they
imagine.
start,
it takes the professionalism out of that. I'm sure.
well, they're in the wrong place.
Yeah,
They're
100%.
100% in the wrong place. If they approach me with that kind of question, I'm like, what is the matter with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a spa, I do have the option to contact my manager or security, have them escorted, and have them banned from the property.
Right.
Not just the spa, not just from service with me,
Yeah.
but from the entire property. In private practice, I need to feel them out before I let them book an appointment.
Interesting. Okay. So how does that process look like?
If I have them on the phone, if they cannot tell from the way I'm talking to them, my voice, my language choices, my policies and procedures, if they can't tell by then they just deserve the pepper spray in the face when they show up.
Right.
And they will get the pepper spray in the
There you go. Defend yourself. Absolutely.
But in terms of, I had a conversation with a manager where I used to work, and she's like, oh, these places are really diminishing the reputation of massage therapy. And I was like, yeah, but if they weren't there, those creeps would come to us because they're not going to stop being creeps.
Yeah.
I think the big problem is that some people are sex workers by choice, and others are sex workers by force.
Yes.
And I have no way of knowing how to tell
Yeah. Right.
which is which, or how to protect one. It's a sad fact of life. It's a sad fact of life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I specifically remember when we were talking with Daniela, she experienced human trafficking in her life, and she came in here. She gave us a wonderful interview, and but one of the points that I remember us talking about specifically was like it can be anybody, right? And it's interesting that you brought that up because not only can anybody go through that experience, but we, like you said, we never know if it's like by force or by choice, right? And there's always that assumption. They're like, oh my God, they're doing this for money, whatever. They're horrible, whatever. But we don't know, right? So it's interesting that that you bring that up. But going back into specific massage therapy, so one of the main things that I found very interesting about you coming in is that I was under the impression, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that as in like I was told that this is what you have experienced. You have a way or at least have some experience where you have given people massages and you have been able to feel something that not everybody can feel or see in their backs, in their shoulders, arms, whatever it is, right? And the word that I'm trying to get to is trauma.
Yes.
So I'm very extremely curious to hear how does that look like and what was that experience? What happened in the situation where you started noticing this?
It was a couples massage. I had the woman. She was introduced to me saying that she really needed the break from life and stress because her best friend had died recently. And while I had her on the table, once I had her face up and I started working the left side of her neck, there was something about the knots in the left side of her neck that were not typical.
Interesting.
And it was like they were talking to me. All they kept saying was shock and rage. And I'm like, that's weird. But the words didn't change. That was what they were telling me was shock and rage. So I just started connecting dots and I asked her, I said, was your friend's death unexpected? And are you angry at her for leaving you? And she said that her best friend had been murdered. And I was
Jeez.
like, oh my God, there's the shock. And no one's been arrested yet. And I was like, that's the rage. Any surviving best friend would be like raging.
That's
And it was
wild.
right here. And, but there's limits to my massage, to my therapy license. I'm not a psychologist
Right.
or a counselor. All I could do is offer her words of hope and solace and suggest that she talk to someone. There was another, again, couples massage, and that's just coincidental. But I was working the legs. I was like, okay, you can let this go. Let's go. 2 seconds later, tense up again. Same thing with both arms, both legs, front, face up, face down. So at the end of this service, I asked her, were you in a car accident recently? And she looked at her partner and she's like, yeah, that was like 5 months ago. How could you tell? I said, because your muscles are still in shock. They don't trust where they are.
Really?
Yeah. And the other therapist, it turned out the guy, same thing. They had been in the car accident together and they could not let it out of their muscles. So, yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how I read their muscles, but they talk to me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I think you've been doing this for so long too. So there's actually research behind the body keeps the score with trauma, right? And how it stays in the body, it stays in the muscles. And like, even like the thought of like energy, right? That hits the shock of the muscle or whatever. And if there's nothing that actually allows it to process through or be, I guess, treated, then it just kind of holds in that space. And so it's so interesting to me because I think that like the correlations, like we're mind, body, spirit, like, but it's all connected. Like it's not separate. You can't separate those things. And this is why I think like that some people really don't understand even like the full benefits of massage therapy. Like it's just this thought of like, oh, like, a spa day because whatever. But when you're actually using massage therapy, it's a very powerful like treatment, like
Right.
it's an actual like therapy, for
Right.
your body, which then in turn also supports the process of like, you may not be a psychologist or anything like that, but the work that you're doing on the bodies is actually supporting that person's.
Right, because it gives the brain and the mind permission. I don't have to hold on to this. I can just process or let go or rest or sleep or, whatever the mind has been unable to do fully, completely, because it's so busy holding and protecting and guarding that. I mean, for massage therapists, at least in school in Florida, and I'm assuming it's across the country, but particularly here, we are drilled into get that client out of sympathetic nervous system and into parasympathetic nervous system. And basically the difference is sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. Parasympathetic system is rest and digest. So if you're constantly triggered into fight or flight, then rest and digest are deprived of energy, deprived of time, and that's where all of those systems, all your digestion screwed up. Everything involved in digestion is screwed up. Everything involved in sleep.
Well, it causes disease. It leads to disease. Like people don't realize, but even like the cortisol that's being released, like the stress, people will die from stress.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
and it'll come in disease, you know. Yeah.
Even when we had Dr. Giordano come on through, he talked about like how your gut is like such an important part of your mental health, and then how that can just not having a correct diet can mess up everything up here, and everything up here controls everything out here, you know?
Like, how do you feel? I feel like a lot of things are kind of correlated when it comes to health. Like, how do you feel about things like yoga or therapeutic, other holistic ways of doing things, and kind of like solutions to mental health and also like body health?
Yeah.
How do you feel about those things?
Yoga. My attempts at yoga are embarrassing. So I'm not gonna talk
I think everybody's
Mine
attempts
too.
at yoga.
Yeah.
I thought I was athletic until I started doing yoga. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm
Bro,
done.
that's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like mad respect.
But that kind of stretching and mindful breathing and intentionality with holding a pose,
Exactly.
all for it.
Yeah.
Totally all for it.
I hold the pose all the time. It's
It's
called
funny,
sleeping
everything-
person.
Everything she
That's
just
my
said.
pose.
What did you say? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
My yoga pose is sleeping person. That's
Oh.
my just
I love
when
that
you
one.
just
That's my
sleep all
favorite.
day, you know.
But it's true what she said, like, because I've done yoga a few times, and like, bro, there's nothing more difficult than intentionally breathing, because it's a certain way you like breathe in through your nose, right, and out through your nose, and then you're stretching, and while stretching, you're getting into like very uncomfortable places, and it becomes hard to do. And it's easier when you breathe, but it's hard to breathe because it's uncomfortable. It's such a weird dynamic, and it's literally just kind of like tossing yourself in fire and learning to like deal with it, kind of thing. Like
Or-
it's such a weird thing for me.
Decoupling from all the unnecessary things in life and just learning to be in your body.
Which we forget. So this is the thing. Babies know how to breathe. Okay, they know how to breathe. They breathe normal. You
Diaphragm.
see it in their diaphragm. And we, as adults, we forget how to breathe like normally, and we all breathe through our mouth, which is not good for you. Okay, rather than breathing through your nose, you're not supposed to breathe as like often either if you're actually breathing correctly. And so it's like all of these concepts we kind of lose through life because of, to me, like I think that we as human beings have created like stressful ways of living and have found like really bad habits within our living. And we could talk about like social media distractions, like all of these things too, that pull us away from like actually just connecting into our body, or we go through trauma and experiences and we get into that fight or flight mode. And then we've been in that for so long, and it's really like putting such a damaging our bodies, you know? And so bringing to like the awareness of that and getting back into like certain practices, which are actually like, these are like ancient because this was like how people
Right.
like live, you know, like,
Yeah, that's something we often forget about all these practices of wellness. They've existed for hundreds
and
upon
they're so
hundreds of
simple,
years,
safe and free,
right?
you know,
Like,
Oh my gosh.
Breathing.
Safe, free, easily accessible. Outside is always there. You know?
yeah, there
That's
you go.
something I was watching the Earthing movie yesterday. Just talking about grounding, putting your bare feet on the grass, and the earth just absorbs your negative ions or positive ions or whatever, but it floods you instantaneously with the right what you need. And I was like, outside is right there. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try this. And before I came here, I purposely wore flip-flops so that I could stand in the grass for at least 15 seconds. And I can't wait to try this.
Yeah, we don't really have grass outside our parking lot here. We have gravel.
And you could earth with the the gravel. On
The
the
gravel
floor.
if you
But no,
want. Might get a little
I
hot.
had like a yogi girlfriend for a bit, so I've done a lot of these different singing bowls and bunch of different things, and it is. I'm not like the biggest practitioner in it, obviously, but I'm I'm wanting to definitely say like, if I've noticed something and I see things in certain things, then I'll be like, yeah, it's real. There's definitely stuff in there. There's definitely like things that could work for other people and help them to change and whatever. So like, I think it's super cool that you're kind of connected in that way. And I could feel it. I could feel like you're a very energy driven person. And that was kind of going into my next question. How do you feel about like spirituality and stuff like that? Like,
so important.
mm-hmm.
So important. I mean, I grew up in a very rigid religious background.
Okay.
And from the time I was little, I was just rejecting it. Like, something's just not right here. And of course, as a child, I couldn't articulate what exactly it was, but it didn't feel right. And I'm really glad that I had this spiritual journey and gave myself permission to explore, because I've just felt for a very long time, since my teens, that if God created everything, then there's nowhere you can't get back to God. Like, how do you avoid that? How is there only one right religion? And how did you know that it's yours? Spiritual practices, we don't know what it is, whether it's energy or soul or spirit, but who cares, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's just there. So I've been to a sound bowl ceremony with cacao, liquid cacao. That was amazing.
What is liquid cacao?
It's like hot chocolate, except it's not processed.
Okay,
It's raw cacao.
that's what I thought. Because like cacao is like the raw chocolate, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when I went to the singing thing, it was a very extreme experience for me. It was a lot of emotions and I'm sure there were people. I think some people were like going through very stressful situations, and that's kind of what brought that whole situation. And I just kind of went with my girlfriend at the time, and yeah, it was wild. I mean, you hear the noise, and you just feel a lot of different energies traveling throughout the room, and you see, because I was very religious as well. I grew up in an apostolic church, and I spoke tongues before and all that. So like, it's a very different atmosphere, but it's similar in as far as like the energy and things that kind of can be around there.
Right, the things that you just can't readily explain,
exactly.
but you experienced it, and it's real.
It's otherworldly. It's like an otherworldly energy that you can't explain it. It's like, it's not happy, it's not sad, it's surreal, kind of. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's definitely one of those moments where I'm like, well, that was kind of like a crazy experience for me. Like, because I think for me, I just wasn't prepared for it at the moment. Because there was a lot of screaming and like stuff like that. And I was just, I thought I was just going to hear like some sounds. But, I also welcome those experiences and those perspectives, because it's like, you never know what people are going through. And it's cool to see that
And you
stuff.
learn, I think, like I hung out with like some native Indians and like done like sweat lodges and stuff like that, and like learned a lot from their culture and their beliefs and like some of the ways in which they process things, which was super cool. Like I love just like really learning from cultures and like talking to like even people that are like a lot way older than me, that have lived longer than me, that have just like wisdom in certain areas.
Yeah. I mean, you run into those, not to be rude, like older people they just kind of yap. But then, like you said, there's those people that you run into and you're like, bro, this person has so many, like John, he has so many experiences, and you're just like, I wish I could sit with this guy for 5 more hours to hear about his life and hear about how he's done things.
Yeah.
So you definitely gotta like, you can't take everyone for granted, and you gotta make sure you give everybody that space to be that. So you never know what you're gonna learn or what you're gonna run into or experience. So
that is true.
Yeah.
You just never know until you get
and
out there.
I get that a lot from people, and especially like people at my gym that are like the older crowd at my gym, because I actually do like talking to people. And I was talking to a gentleman for about probably an hour and 15 minutes at the gym, and after the conversation, he's like, I don't think I've ever in my whole life had a young person sit down and talk with me this long for no reason, like out of nowhere, and I didn't know them. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I didn't plan to sit here and talk with you this long. It just happened, and I'm not the type of person to like just blow off an experience or blow off a situation that's happening, because this may have never happened. And it's obviously like, I believe in God, obviously, and I think God aligned it to where I was supposed to meet this person and talk to this person, because maybe they're going through something and they needed to have like, maybe they haven't talked to their son and they needed to talk to a kid,
right.
So there's so many things, and it's just like, God works mysteriously through people, and
Yes.
like He uses me as a vessel, and He uses other people as a vessel to reach.
Right.
So
You just showed up to like get ripped abs, and
Yeah.
suddenly you're getting
And then now
wisdom
I'm, you
dropped
know,
on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but those are my favorite experiences. I always say like God is like, because I agree,
That's life.
It's inconveniencing you. Like if you will allow yourself to be inconvenienced, I always say that's where like I have my most God moments.
Yeah.
Is like allowing this that kind of process. I came here for one thing, but I was like just like open enough to like.
Yeah, it's having that yes mentality. I mean, you've probably seen the Yes with what's
Getting
Jim
to
Carrey?
yes.
Jim Carrey. That's one of the greatest movies ever. And it's not like, I mean, there's so many great movies, but like the whole perspective and the thought process behind the movie, it's like, just say yes. What's the worst that can happen, you know?
Yeah.
The worst that's going to happen is, you know, it doesn't work out the best way you want it to. But then you just start over, you say yes to something else, and you keep doing. But if you don't say yes, you're not living life.
Yeah.
You know? So it's perspective. And life is all about perspective.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
That's a fun exercise, actually, is to pick a day where you restrict yourself from saying no. You say yes to every single thing.
Just don't
that
have my
comes up.
son with me.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
You just got to be careful of the company you're keeping on
There's
those
some
days, huh?
people in my life that I cannot work with.
Thinking of robbing a bank today. How you feeling?
Yes.
There was like that movie that came out with like the yes whatever with the parents where they had to say like yes that day and like Cooper always like, can we have this day? I'm like, heck to the no.
Yeah, because even at the end of the movie of Yes, it just showed that like another guy took that like exploit and he started ripping people off.
Yeah, it was-
He's like,
yeah.
you're gonna donate all your stuff to me, yes, and they just
Yeah.
gave him everything. So
Yeah.
it's just like, you know, it's just
Yeah.
don't do too much.
To
you
the
know?
extreme,
Well-
right? It's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance.
One thing that I wanted to ask, going back a little into the actual practice of massage therapy that you have given to your clients, you said that you have been able to kind of like notice. You don't know. There's a lot of I don't knows when it comes to that, right? You can never 100% know for a fact. But I am curious. What is the I don't want to say the darkest, but the most extreme situation that you can remember where you were giving somebody a massage and you saw something or you felt something dark?
Thank you for watching part 1 of We Talk to a Muscle Whisperer. Make sure to tune in next week for part 2.